Bomas 26th October 2020. Drama bin drama, Arab drama, ole drama, zote pamoja. Ayayayayaya. Manze, wapi popcorn? Folks, never trust a politician. And that is why, when you analyze politics, you must be able to see through the words of the politician. The nice, sweet, flowery, convincing, inspiring words of a politician. And try and discover or guess what the objectives are. What do they want to achieve? Yeah. Or what are they about to do? With this in mind, I'm going to attempt to break down the three main speeches made at Bomas over the BBI initiative. And I hope to do justice, to all the speeches. Because that way, many more Kenyans may be able to open their eyes and understand exactly where we are, and why we should take advantage of any opportunity that we get as the people of Kenya, and shelve our emotions and our partisan politics. Very difficult to do, but at least we should try. And I'm going to start with the speech, the most interesting speech made by Deputy President Dr. William Ruto. Judging from the speech, there is absolutely no doubt that the Deputy President prepared, and he prepared thoroughly for this speech. He even had a quote allegedly attributed from US President number 16, Abraham Lincoln. DP Ruto told us it was number 17, but actually President number 17 in the US was Andrew Johnson. Lincoln was 16. When somebody prepares thoroughly, it means it is important. They have an important objective. And therefore, that is the question we must start with. What was the objective of the Deputy President in giving this speech? As he was driven in his Deputy Presidential motorcade to Bomas, seated back left, what was going through his mind? What were the calculations going through his brain? If we figure out that successfully, then we will understand the speech totally. Now, let us agree that if you want to contribute and improve a document, then your remarks will go something like this. I think this suggestion should be improved by doing 1, 2, 3. I think we'd be better off, and this will end up being more effective if we do this and that. And this is a discussion you can easily have in private with the President and the former Prime Minister. He is the Deputy President. But what we saw at Bomas, while using the word respectfully very many times, was a complete dismantling of the BBI process and a plug for the hustler narrative. In my view, the objectives of the Deputy President are clear. He wants to completely disintegrate the BBI. That is his chief objective. Why? Because that's also a question we must answer. Simply because a successful BBI will be a big win for Raila Odinga. And this will make it almost impossible for any of his opponents to be able to counter this particular move in a 2022 presidential race. whether Raila vies himself or whether he decides to back somebody else. And therefore it makes sense as a prospective presidential candidate for 2022 to make sure that the BBI goes nowhere. Because the BBI wins, Ruto loses the 2022 elections. It's as simple as that. Now, in my view, this is extremely sad. Once again, an opportunity for Kenyans to change our laws, our rules, for the betterment of the vast majority of Kenyans has the potential of being lost because it has been reduced to a simple political contest between two Kenyans. That, my friends, is the truth. Now, listening to the Deputy President address Wananchi countrywide over the last few months, many of us have forgotten the gift that the Deputy President was born with. The ability to make a speech that inspires and convinces while carefully analyzing and gauging the mood of his audience and adjusting accordingly. That, in my view, is a gift he was born with. Because in 1992, during campaigns carried out by a notorious organization called Youth for KANU 92, William Ruto was a university student, almost graduating. A quiet man who did not speak much. And those who were with him were shocked when he was given an opportunity to address the people. And it came naturally to him. He carried the audience with him. And people were shocked. This quiet young man who hardly speaks, is this really him? Well, that DP Ruto came out very clearly at Bomas. Granted. And I know what my late political lecturer would have said after listening to this speech. He would have said, Mark Antony at Julius Caesar's funeral. Of course, quoting from that William Shakespeare classic, Julius Caesar. A very political play. One of my basic political textbooks under the tutelage of my late political lecturer. And don't feel left out if you've never read any Shakespeare. I'll break it down for you very quickly. Mark Antony started his speech by clearly coming out in support of those at the funeral. The people who had actually assassinated Julius Caesar. And as he continued with his famous speech, it seemed as if he was agreeing, but he was actually going in the opposite direction. And by the end of that speech, he had that audience captured completely. The speech by the Deputy President at Bomas did not quite end up like Mark Antony's. However, it started like that. And there's no doubt that he had the full attention of his audience, many of whom were confused because they thought they knew what he was going to say based on his other speeches to Wananchi countrywide. But all hell broke loose when the issue of wheelbarrows came up. In case you don't know what's happening in Kenya, the Deputy President has been donating a lot of wheelbarrows in recent times. And they've become a major political issue in our country. After this wheelbarrow maneno came in, there was very strong response, negative response from the audience. And his speech was interrupted all the way through until he finished. From that point onwards, who would ever have imagined or guessed that wheelbarrows would become so emotive in Kenya. It is important to note that throughout his speech, the Deputy President wanted to come out as being on the side of the vast majority of Kenyans, poverty-stricken Kenyans, struggling Kenyans. In my view, this was really a presidential campaign speech disguised as something else. And based on the reaction of Kenyans, it was effective. I have talked to a few people on the ground. I've even observed the number of views on the videos on YouTube concerning this speech. And there's a lot of interest by Kenyans on the Deputy President's speech. The idea is to give the impression that he is the only one seated at the high table who is not even completely accepted at the high table, who is talking on behalf of the common man, on behalf of the mwananchi. That is the message the Deputy President wants to send across. And I think some Kenyans are going to swallow it, hook, line and sinker. And nobody can stop them. Because a vast majority of Kenyans right now are desperate. And they've been made even more so by the ravages of the measures put in place against COVID-19. And so very many will grab the opportunity to shoot barbs against the establishment. Bottom line, the Deputy President knows precisely what he's doing. And he knows that what he's doing is working. You know, in politics, if you're doing something and it's working, you don't stop it. In fact, you do more and more of it. And this is precisely what the Deputy President is doing. The audience at Bomas, of course, saw through it and jeered him. But the vast majority of Kenyans, I don't think they'll see it. I think they're going to take it in. They're going to drink it in. Sad, but the reality of politics. Because the truth is, the Deputy President didn't ride a bicycle into Bomas. Neither was he driven to Bomas in a Probox vehicle, Toyota Probox. That is the reality. And although he agreed that we should not have the discussion of the rich versus the poor, he agreed on that. He said, I also believe that. The truth is, that is a discussion he'll push for what it's worth. And indeed he pushed it in a mighty way in his speech at Bomas. Now this Abraham Lincoln quote, although I'm not an expert on American presidents, older members of this channel will know that in my younger days, I was an analyst on American politics to a Kenyan audience. In my younger, naive days. And I am much older and wiser, I believe. But the knowledge has stuck. It has never left my mind. And the two presidents I admire most are John F. Kennedy and Abraham Lincoln. And to my utter shock, in this year 2020, I discovered the real reason why these two were assassinated. They were assassinated by the cabal. And it was all about money. But that's a story for another day. Anyway, what I need to say is that it is highly unlikely that this quote the Deputy President used came from Abraham Lincoln. The quote he quoted, of course, was, great things come to those who wait, but only the things left by those who hustle. Now, there are many reasons why Abraham Lincoln is unlikely to have said this. But the most convincing is the fact that at the time Abraham Lincoln lived, the word hustle did not mean what it means today. In those days, the word hustle and hard work were as far apart as day and night. Hustle meant to obtain something easily, maybe by stealing. And so we can comfortably rule out Abraham Lincoln using this word in any of his speeches or in any of his writings. You know, one of the things that the information superhighway called the internet has done is to manipulate and pollute the truth many times, although it also gives us correct information. Let me just give you an example. You'll remember the many quotes attributed to former Zimbabwean president Robert Mugabe. And some of those quotes were about life in Kenya, things Mugabe would never have known or understood. But these quotes were very popular on social media. And some people still think today that those were quotes from Robert Mugabe. And so in the same way, this is actually a quote which in many places on the internet you'll find attributed to Abraham Lincoln. But there is no proof that he actually said them. And I've just given you a reason why it is highly unlikely that he'd have said it. Anyway, the deputy president used it. I'm thinking maybe it was a late night thing. He was sitting around with his handlers and he told them, get me a quote to use tomorrow. And somebody went on the internet and used the keywords hustle. And the Abraham Lincoln thing popped up and he used it. It happens. You know, some Kenyans think that just because the deputy president was not reading from anywhere, this speech was off-the-cuff remarks. That can't be true. This was a very carefully crafted and prepared speech, although it was not read. I mean, even in the introduction, he was able to throw barbs at Raila while appearing not to do so. Because he addressed Raila as former prime minister. And then he added former vice presidents, Musalia Mudavadi and Kalonzo Musyoka. Of course, the whole idea there was to water down Raila Odinga. But that is politics. Let's not get too emotional about it. What we should really be concerned about are the consequences of what these politicians are trying to do. That's what we should really focus on. We should never focus on, this is my candidate, he must go to State House. Ruto must be president, or Raila must be president by 8 a.m. in the morning or 6 a.m. No. Those things will not help us. They'll never help our children and our great-grandchildren. Let's focus where we should focus. Now I'll leave you to chew on that. I will analyze the other speeches in subsequent videos. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.